Welcome to Sunday Cinemas here on Ruthless TV. Today I'm going to be reviewing Call Her King. It's a BET Originals movie, and let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with the synopsis. Judge Jaeda King has just sentenced Sean Samuels to death when the courthouse is hijacked by Samuels' brother Gabriel, also known as Black Caesar. The judge must rely on her wits, strength, and skill to find a way to end the standoff. Now, in the immediate credits, we see that the film is coming to us by way of Blacklight Entertainment, which I spoke about this entertainment group in the last video that I published for Call Her King. It was a trailer that I did. They are responsible for the lighting and the sound, for film and television, and they actually did a phenomenal job, by the way. Now, the writer and the director of the film, Wes Miller, he is a very interesting filmmaker to me. And I say interesting because in this film, he has a very unique way of exploring a couple of different social issues. And we're going to be seeing this play out through the eyes of flawed characters. And after reading a little bit about this director, it turns out that this is his thing, right? So he's carved out quite a nice lane for himself in the industry that seems to be working well for him. The actors that he chose to work with on this film are well seasoned in the industry. Naturi Naughton from Power Book 2 Ghost, Lance Gross from House of Pain, Jason Mitchell, and a host of others. The list goes on and on. Now, were these characters believable in their respective roles? Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that they were, and I'll explain why with each character as I unfold this story. Now, the scene opens with Jada King, played by Naturi Naughton. She seems to be fighting against who appears to be her father in like this taekwondo or karate match. And she's a bit disappointed because if this was a street fight, she'd lose, hands down. So she went home feeling a bit disappointed in her lackluster performance. She plays the role of a married woman with a daughter who studied and finished law school. Now we see her at home with her family, and clearly her and her husband Gerald, they have some issues within the marriage. And don't worry guys, nothing is happening in this scene, like absolutely nothing, trust me. He's just standing there. He wants something to happen, but nothing happens. So just calm down. Jada is clearly the breadwinner, and she's a little bit frustrated in holding things down all on her own. And this scene really does a good job with establishing the toughest nails personality of Judge King. We find out in this scene that they used to run a restaurant pre-pandemic where they'd often feed homeless people, and her husband is still somewhat in touch and connected with that part of their lives, while Jada went on to become a judge, but not just any judge. She's a judgmental one, right? One that looks down on her defendants, and this is per her husband. And we'll find out a bit later as to why a lot of people would agree with him. Today is the day of prosecution of a notorious killer, Sean Samuels. And as she heads to the courtroom, we find that she has a reputation of being pro-prosecution. And we can see that she's struggling just a little bit. Like, she really doesn't want to deal with this case at all. I mean, it's all over the radio, people are talking about it all over town, and she just rather not deal with it. And what I like about this scene, I can appreciate that it's still dark when she arrives to work, because it shows us how dedicated she is to her career, and that she arrives before the chickens even begin to crow. Great job at showing this without having any dialogue behind it. And while the judge is preparing to start this infamous day in court, the play of mayhem has already started to play right outside the courtroom. Now, when she gets in there, the women's bathroom was being cleaned. So Jada used the men's instead. Have y'all ever done that before? But while she's in there, two of the lawyers came in, and they had a very racist conversation, in that one of them believes that Black women cannot make hard decisions from the bench because they're too emotional. And this hit home for Jada, of course, because she's obviously a Black woman who's on the bench. And this is another layer that's being added to the already bad reputation that she has and the unsettling emotions that she tend to carry while dealing with defendants. So in this moment, she feels that she may have a point to prove. While she's in her chambers prepping for the case, she had a visitor slash friend slash ex-lover, Duke. Now, let me just pause here to say that the director did an outstanding, phenomenal job with establishing the feel of this movie. The aesthetics were on point. The setting, the dark lawyer-esque type mood that we get from the way that the scene is lit. And Naturi was believable as a judge, you guys. And I'm assuming that she pulled this role off because she is no stranger to the courtroom, right? And the lawyer dialogue. In Power Book 2 goes, she's used to courtrooms, lawyers, judges, because she's a defendant, defending herself against being the queen pin behind a lot of the illegal activity that was orchestrated by her husband. So she pulled this role off quite well, and I believed that she was Jada King. But this Duke character, he was a snake. My grandmother would call him a snake of the grass, like one of those snake oil salesmen. He came in to remind Jada that they were the only two people that knew the ins and the outs of the Sean Samuels case, her and him. He also reminded her about how he was there for her when her husband wasn't there, implying an illicit affair between the two of them. So here we see another lawyer that's going to play a huge part in her decision for Sean Samuels. Now, the army that was forming outside a little while ago had just gotten the green light to proceed and move inside the courthouse. They had finagled their way inside, and now their plan is in full motion. Now, this is not just any army. This is an army of well-dressed masked men and women. And they moved ahead of another woman who immediately puts you in the mind of a Black Panther. The afro, the all-black attire. Clearly she was a leader of some sort. So we move into the empty courtroom. There are no public participants at all. Only the jury, a few officers, lawyers, the defendant, the defense attorney, Jerry, who's eating uncontrollably, nervous, sweating bullets. And then we also had some of the family members of the victims. And Judge Jaeda is late. She's in her chambers contemplating reassigning the case. I told you guys, she was really uncomfortable with taking this case. She's tired of the mental battle, and she's been struggling with probably, I don't know, since the first day she discovered that she'd be handling it. And she's sick and tired of all the death threats. So this caused her a delay into the courtroom. Then we have one of the officers of the court that came into the chambers, and his name is Stryker. And he gave her a little pep talk so that she could focus on who the hell she really was for real, right? So this gave her the confidence that she needed to go ahead and get started with the inevitable. Like, she's, you know, you got to go out there at some point, right? Then they cut to this flashback scene of Sean's brother. And this is a meeting that took place about 90 days ago, you know, prior to this infamous court hearing. He's the founder of this cybersecurity firm in Columbus, Ohio. And we find out that the army of the well-dressed constituents that we saw earlier are the men and women who have suffered some type of injustice within the frame of the criminal legal system. So he's their leader and inviting them to join him in making history. So as they're preparing to make their grand entrance, we see Sean Samuels. He was given the chance to address the court before he got sentenced. And here is where I thought that he could have said more. Like, this was an opportunity for this character to really, really draw us in. But I only saw them scratch the surface with this scene. Like, it was a basic level emotion. And I just feel that this may have been an opportunity for us to really connect with this character a little bit more on some level. But I think that they really saved that for another part of the film. I just thought that it would, you know, be better suited here because we're, you know, just being introduced to this character, and it just would have been a great time to connect with him. Now, while Judge Jaeda is running down the counts of where she was finding him guilty and not guilty, the militant army was busy working, disconnecting the Wi-Fi, phone signals, any means of connecting to the outside world, when Lance Gross walked in, okay, all stone-faced and in full command. The movie continues to flashback with these scenes of him giving instructions through the different phases of their plans to take over the courtroom. As the army bombarded their way through the entrances of the courthouse, taking down anyone and anything that stood in their way, Judge Jaeda sentenced Sean Samuels to death by lethal injection. The courtroom was filled with his brother's militant party, and more gunfire ensued. Now, this next scene was one of my favorite scenes with Lance, or Gabriel Samuels, walking down the aisle of the courtroom after his team of goons silenced everyone and held some of them hostage and at gunpoint. And that song comes to mind. I be feeling like the man when I walk through. Ain't studying what you're saying when I walk through. That's what this reminded me of. But anyway, he commanded attention, right? This scene created suspense, intrigue, and he looked really good in that suit, huh, ladies? Even though we know very well who he was from the trailer, but this scene was still all of that. Now, in this first standoff, Gabriel held one of the elder judges at gunpoint, commanding that the judge and his brother come out of the chambers and into the courtroom. Apparently, Gabriel knew this judge and surprised that the judge didn't remember him. So Gabriel and Sean had a heart-to-heart for a moment, but the judge is still stubborn and she didn't want to come out, which forces the action of Gabriel to move forward to the next phase, quote unquote. Phase 3 involved Gabriel, also known as Black Caesar, holding his own court session with with his cohorts. Now, bear in mind, we have to remember that these people have also been wronged by the criminal justice system. They now get an opportunity to have a trial for themselves and ask all the questions that should have been asked when they were trying Sean. He forced the court reporter off the floor and told her to scribe the entire session of what everyone said. So now Sean is in chambers with the judge, his lawyer, and a couple of others. And Judge Jaeda knows that she needs to negotiate and negotiate quickly. She rushed over to Sean and told him that if they made it out of there alive, that she will order the court to reopen his case. And in the meantime, Black Caesar is out in the courtroom putting Duke on trial with these fools who they just let out of jail. So this is going to be very interesting. And while he's on trial, now the judge, the defendant, the judge's constituents all move down the stairwell. And the friend of the judge, what's his name, Stryker, he used Sean as a pawn, just taking him along for the ride because he knew that they wouldn't shoot the guest of honor. So the game that Black Caesar is playing out in the courtroom is that Duke is on trial. And he's going to be on trial for about 10 minutes because he's put together all the questions and everything to ask Duke. And all the pressure was on Duke because for every proven lie that he told, one of the militants would kill one of his co-workers. And Black Caesar also pulled together these electronic messages and emails from Duke and Judge Jaeda proving that they had an affair, which is of course a huge conflict of interest as far as justice for his brother is concerned. And this cross-examination from the inmates, it was too funny. You guys have got to see this if you haven't already. I thought this brought a bit of comic relief to the movie along with Jerry. Jerry was very funny. He was very funny too. So the next standoff comes from Salima, Caesar's female lieutenant, the one with the cute afro. She told Sean to come with them and that she would protect him from being shot. But what was stopping him was Stryker. He told Sean that if he went to the other side with them, that he'd kill him, and Sean believed him. But that didn't stop Salima. She allowed her men to go ahead and open fire and start shooting. And during the round of shooting, Sean told Stryker to walk with him for protection. So he moved a little bit closer to him, you know, to protect him sort of. And it actually worked. When the round of shots were over, neither of them got hit. And he told Sean to get off him. He's an ungrateful bastard. I don't like this character. I don't like this character at all. Even though he was actually, you know, giving the judge his pep talk and he was really, you know, positive at first, but I don't like him. Now, as Duke is being accused of prosecutorial misconduct, Jerry and Jaeda are in the hall going toe to toe, round for round and pound for pound on her poor job at being a judge. And this is a big pivotal point in my humble opinion. We find out through their argument and disagreement that not only does Judge Jaeda battle internally with a lot of the decisions that she makes while on the bench, but she also knows that Sean is as innocent in the charges being brought against him as they come. She knows he's innocent. So as they continue to move through this stairwell, the real court case continues to play out in court. We found out through this mock trial that the lawyer Duke actually interviewed one of the inmates who actually killed the people that Sean is being accused of killing. And in exchange for his testimony against Sean, the extra charges brought against him were dropped. And he was also allowed to get out of prison and to see his kids. And let's keep in mind that the jury is still inside the courtroom and the court reporter is there, the other lawyers, everyone that mattered was there except Judge King, of course. And this really got real when one of the inmates was cross-examining Duke, and he really got down to business. He took them gold teeth out, laid them on the table, and he really went in. This was, listen, I'm telling you, just watch the movie, okay? Okay. And we're gonna fast forward just a little bit here. Black Caesar is making commands for them to give him $4 million, the police department, to be deposited into an offshore bank account by 9 o'clock in the morning, or the hostages are gonna be offed one by one. Judge Jaeda is now holding Sean hostage at gunpoint, and he began questioning her about the rumors of her letting a prisoner go, and then he later killed someone. She began telling him the story of what actually happened and why she came to the decision that she did. She told him that some of the blood samples were mishandled, which set the precedent for future decisions, and she admitted that she was wrong. She made a wrong decision. So then Sean took this opportunity to suggest to her that she was wrong in his case as well. He told her that he didn't kill anybody, and in this moment she believed him. She wanted to know why his brother went through all of this drama and bloodshed instead of just asking that his case be transferred. But he had to prove that an injustice had taken place, not only in the case with his brother, but to show how easy and simple it is for law enforcement to get away with whatever the hell they wanted, which was way bigger than proving a point in mishandling his brother's trial. Which is basically the premise of this entire story, guys, in my humble opinion. Now, while Gabriel is giving Luke the gospel of his own lies, Sean is in the chambers working the judge over, telling her the sob story about their father and how he was wrongly accused of murder. And this is where we find out where Black Caesar knew that judge from. He was the presiding judge in their father's murder case, hence why Luke said that the reason that he saw Sean as guilty was because of the sins of their father. And their father ended up taking his own life, by the way, under the pressures of being pinned guilty when he was in fact innocent. History playing itself out all over again through Sean. So Sean laid out the story so well that the judge just gave him the keys. She gave him the keys to the handcuffs and that were wrapped around his wrist, and she freed him. She let him go. That was some hell of a story, right? For her to just do that. And he laid it on thick, pretty thick. So without going into too much detail on this next scene, it turns out that the reason that Jerry was so nervous at the beginning of the trial is because he may have been in with Black Caesar the whole time and acting as their man on the inside. And old Sherlock Holmes here, he figured it out. So Jerry took him out. Just like that, he was gone. Jerry took him out with an Apple power charger cord, right? Gone. And things started to move fairly quickly after this. Judge Jaeda got a chance to show off her skills that her father taught her right there in the hallway as Duke was apologizing for being such a douchebag. The chief of police decided to now go inside the federal building to get the officials out of their hostage situation. So Jerry saw the judge and Sean in the hallway, and he told him to come into the file room with him. He decided that he wanted his freedom and he wanted to leave when he was stopped by Shalima. Now, here's where we find out that Black Caesar has everybody on payroll. Everybody, even Jerry, his brother's lawyer. And this standoff was a bit confusing to me, and maybe I should have rewatched this part, but I couldn't understand why he was selling Sean out when at this point everyone standing in this room were all on the same page. The judge literally set him free. Shalima is his brother's lieutenant. Jerry was defending Sean in the trial. So they're all on the same team pretty much. But for some reason, the standoff continued. And this is what brings us to this moment of Judge Jaeda and Shalima at odds with each other, right? So I really wish there was a little bit more clarity here in the film. And of course, this standoff sent Shalima and the judge into war against each other, as well as Jerry and Sean. When Shalima ran out of rounds, she threw her gun down, and this leaves Judge Jaeda one up over her. And she stood there with her gun pointed right at her, and Shalima just knocked the gun out of her hand. Then, of course, she went to work on Judge Jaeda, knocked her the F out, period. Clearly, she knocked the wind out of her because This hit sent Jada into that white light. Like, she heard her father's voice reminding her that she's noble and that she has to show her character while defending herself. She woke up and went back in on Shalima. And when she saw that Shalima was trying to stab her, she did this move that her daddy taught her and forced Shalima to stab herself. So that was that. An interesting turn of events, Sean killed his attorney, and Judge Jaeda turned on Sean because his brother killed her friends during the standoff. So the judge locked Sean behind the gate because she doesn't want him to witness the visit that she's going to have with his brother. Now, Black Caesar is schooling the jury about how black and brown people are treated in the justice system, giving them all the stats, all the info. His lecture was powerful and it was honest and raw. And he gave the jury, 5 minutes to render a decision based on the trial of Duke Hawkins that he had just ruled over. And right before they rendered their decision, a bomb went off in the wheelchair with Jerry, right after Sean killed him. And as the dust from the bomb is settling, in her confusion and at this point traumatized state of mind, Black Caesar was able to disorient the judge long enough to knock the gun out of her hand. Now they're left fighting one-on-one in the courtroom, Jada and Black Caesar. And he shot at Judge Jaeda, but there were no more bullets in the gun. So after he found out that she killed his boo Shalima, he snapped Hank's neck. So he's gone. Black Caesar went downstairs looking for Sean. At the same time, his team was successful in deleting and transferring criminal files. He officially said goodbye to Shalima. And Sean is wondering why his brother went through all of this just to save him. But he had to let him know that the case wasn't just about him. It was about their dad. It was about other black and brown people and people who were wrongly incarcerated. So what they were doing now is deleting all of the government files of people that are incarcerated and placing the deleted files on a backup only they have possession of, which puts them in a position where the government will have to pay them for the only backup copy that exists of all the files of all the criminals who they have locked up. Because without it, they have to let the criminals go, right? So Sean is scared, of course. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So while the dust is settling on who's who and who's where, Black Caesar and his army was moving underground, just like the ancestors did to get away, but not without Judge Jaeda making one last appearance to make sure that they finished the job. And Sean is defending her, and Black Caesar doesn't like it. So he gives his crew the orders to kill this twitch, and then he walked away. I like that line too. But Jada shot the lights off, and she took all 6 of them. She was using her street fighting skills just like her dad taught her. And Black Caesar got away in one of the contractor trucks, that same truck that the 2 soldiers hijacked at the beginning of the movie. Then as he was driving away, Jada stood in the middle of the street shooting, causing Black Caesar to lose control of the truck, turning it over, where he fell out and died right there on the pavement. This is the saddest part of the movie, of course. The movie ended with Jada figuring out that this entire standoff was planned and very well orchestrated. Jada started a new law firm in the end and made amends with her husband, making talks of now finding Sean. And Sean basically continued what his brother started. He took the money that he got from the files his brother gave him, apparently, and began a new revolution with a new army of soldiers. And this concluded the movie, you guys. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the actors, the director, and the actor that actually stood out to me the most was Naturi. It was Naturi. Even though she's a star, she stood out to me because she's a mom, which made her very relatable. And she was believable. It's much different from her character on Power. So we know now that she's not typecast, which is a good thing. She really pulled this off. I believe that she was a judge. So she did a great job. The look of the film was phenomenal, as I said before. And I really connected to this film. And I really like the title, Call Her King. If you guys believe it or not, I have a necklace. And it has King on it, and there's a story behind that. But it has King on it. And that's why I really wanted to see this movie, because I love it. I just find it interesting that sometimes women can be kings too. You know, not literally, but you know, in some sense of the word, you know, we can live up to that in some aspects. So I really appreciated the movie. If you guys watch the movie, let me know what you think about it. And tell me how you feel about Naturi in her starring role. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. You know, I'd appreciate it. And if you're a fan of BET original movies, go ahead and sub to the channels for more videos just like this one. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this breakdown, this movie review. This is my very first one, by the way. I really appreciate you guys. I'll see you on the next one.